All right, I want to bring in our all-star Thanksgiving week panel. Batya Ungar-Sargon, the host of Batya! Explanation Point on News Nation. So I love saying the exclamation point. It was like Jeb when he ran Jeb! Exclamation point. This is Batya. My buddy Chris Stigall up there in Philadelphia, the host of the Chris Stigall Show, and the editor-at-large in all things Legal Eagle, our good friend Alex Swoyer. Good to see you all. Batya, what did you think of Marjorie Taylor Greene stepping down this weekend?
Okay, so I'm a little bit like the hammer that sees everything as a nail, but I honestly think that our biggest problem right now is that the right is doing exactly what the left did in 2016, meaning it is misinterpreting a group of very loud, very extreme, and very out of touch online voices, misreading that as representative of the base. And you just keep seeing this again and again and again. There are these massive online accounts. They have millions of followers. They make a lot of money off of content, so they are not struggling the way a lot of regular Americans are. They don't have the same concerns as regular Americans. These people are obsessed with the Jeffrey Epstein files. These people are anti-Israel by and large. They didn't like the president bombing Iran. They are very out of step with a lot of what the base really likes about the president. Today, CNN reported that President Trump's approval among Republicans is 87%, which is a full 10 points higher than Obama's approval was for Democrats and Bush's approval was for Republicans at this stage in their administrations. The base loves Trump. They love what he's doing. But there is this online contingent that get millions of followers, which, by the way, we now know, thank you, Elon Musk, that a lot of those followers, even the accounts themselves, are not based in America. Another thing I've been saying for years, you look at a Candace Owens video, it has 5 million views. And for some reason, people think that means 5 million Americans agree with her. It is so obviously wrong. Okay, preamble. Now you'll see why that is my hammer. And I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay? This is a woman who was very connected to her base, to her voter base in Georgia, to working class Georgians. But I think at some point, you say one thing, maybe you say something like very critical of Israel, and suddenly you're getting 10 times the engagement online again, because the internet is available globally. And suddenly you start to follow that engagement and you lose touch with where the base is, which is 100% in Trump's corner. And I think that that's really what we saw. She got very taken up with this Epstein thing, an issue that Trump's voters do not care about at all. And I think that that just led her down this path to where she lost that connection to the base and got into this fight with Trump and was like, you know what, this isn't working.
All right, Stigall, you talk to people every day on the radio. You think that's where the base is?
I couldn't agree with Batya more if she paid me, and she hasn't, even though we're all accused of that often. But I'll take the check. No, what I actually said on my own show, I said, I feel great at this hour about being a broadcaster, federally licensed by the FCC. And you know why? Because everything I do, everything I say is fully auditable, and you can open the books and you can see who sponsors the show. To Batya's point, what's bothered me so much about the supposed right in digital media, I don't know who they are. I don't know what motivates them. I don't know where they come from. I don't know what their income is from. And I thought one of the most important points she made is the fact that when we look at these accounts and, wow, they've got millions of followers. Well, yeah, but if half of them are in Qatar, is that as impressive? Not to me. So I'm not suggesting these people don't have followings, and I'm not even suggesting they're not talented. But there's an insincerity and an inorganic kind of suddenness to this pile on the MAGA movement that I don't understand and I don't think is warranted. We're 10 months into the Trump administration, and there's some people with some massive online followings, supposedly on the right, who would have you believe that Trump's not America first and they're more America first or whatever. This president has done more for this country in my lifetime than any president that I have known, that I've been able to vote for anyway as an adult. And I think for anyone supposedly on our side to say otherwise is just wholly disingenuous, and I don't trust it personally.
Alex Swoyer, you look at things, I think, sometimes more analytically and legally. When you see this whole thing goes down, is this an issue of legality or the law, or is it just a misrepresentation of where the base is at?
Well, I think that to take it a step further, to, I guess, echo what has already been said, is she is out of touch, I think, with the Trump base now, and she recognizes that. In her statement, she talked about not wanting to put her constituents through an expensive primary. She knows she's going to be primaried by a Trump-backed candidate. And, I think that, she used to be a Trump candidate. She's left. She no longer has that MAGA support, the president's support. She might have, I guess, the dark web, those echo chambers that was just kind of mentioned out there, fueling her resistance, I guess we could even label it. But in terms of actual Georgia voters, I see them not being in line with her and more in line with the president, and they would definitely turn out to support his candidate. So, I think that just to take it one step further, yes, she seems to be out of touch with where MAGA is, but more so she realizes that, and she realizes the ramifications will be that she loses her seat. So she's stepping down as it is. I think that the bigger impact, though, is something like in the short term that we talk about is the Republicans have such a narrow majority anyways, that without her, and then Massey always kind of being a no, we have to think about what will happen at the end of January with the, I guess, next negotiations on spending. And it makes you wonder, are we heading towards another government shutdown, especially since, that her vote there will no longer be.
And Sean, may I just add
by the
how
way, I
cynical
felt like Alex
it
was
is?
reading my script. I was like, that's literally where I was going. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. That was just...
I would just love to add how cynical it is that she did this media blitz, Bill Maher, The View, and all these kind of traditionally left of center shows, and kind of positioned herself as this person who could see beyond her bubble and the Republican Party or whatever. And then all of a sudden, after she's done with that tour, she quits. Now, I don't know exactly what's behind that, but it strikes me as a little cynical and self-involved.
Maybe The View wants to hire her.
Well, can I just say to that point very briefly, what she did there was she kept talking about common ground, but what she was doing there was finding common ground with leftist elites. Like, there actually is a ton of common ground between working class Democrats and working class Republicans. A lot of it is on issues the president is really strong on, like immigration and manufacturing. Some of it is stuff that I think the GOP needs to get better at, like healthcare, right? Yes. There was tons of areas for common ground between people across the aisle. That's not what she was doing, though. What she was doing was courting the approval of the leftist elites who hate the MAGA base, who hate this country, and who hate the president.
All right, guys, if you need a great night's sleep, do what I do every single night. Use Beam's Dream Powder. Right now, the ultimate cyber discount is available to my listeners, only 50% off, the best deal going that you are going to thank me for, because you're going to sleep better. You're going to stay asleep, wake up feeling refreshed. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code Spicer for 50% off for a very, very limited time during their cyber sale. Shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer, 50% off. So I want to get back to Alex's point in a second, because that's where I was going. But the point that you two brought up is fascinating, because I asked, Marjorie was on our show last week. I mean, this is what's so mind-blowing. When I watched this thing evolve, and I don't mean it, like, this sounds narcissistic, but I was like, did I play a role? Like, because I asked her about this stuff. And then
you did it. Spicer, you did it. You flipped her.
No. But I want to pick up on what Batya said, because at the end of our conversation, I said to her, Marjorie, you went on The View. Why? And I wanted to know, right? And she said, because they asked. Okay. Now, this is what I want to do before I get, because I want to pick up where Alex left out. And I say this because I'm at this age in life, I forget. So I have to keep reminding myself. I want to get back to January 30th, because I agree. I think Alex's point is so huge. But if you guys, should we go on The View? I'm always torn on this. Do you go and bring a voice that they never hear, that audience never hears? Or, because Marjorie said I got invited, so I went. But then I say, okay, but if you go and you don't have backbone and stand up and say, you know what, you guys are horrendous, horrible people that lie about us all the time, and I'm not here to capitulate or to talk to you. Like, I actually think that if you want to go, but talk about who they expose them.
Yeah, I'll say just very quickly, as someone who frequently does the CNN panel, it's unbelievably important to go to those spaces to show up. It's unbelievably important to show up and speak to that audience. So what I would say here, I would say the same things. I would say them on CNN as I would say here, but I would say them in a different way because I want the CNN audience to have the best shot at being able to hear what I'm saying. But the idea that I wouldn't bring up all of the lies they're being told is ridiculous. And I want to make a comparison here. It's kind of like Tucker Carlson having Nick Fuentes on and then agreeing with him about everything, like not actually giving him a hard time. Like there's nothing wrong with ever interviewing someone or going to an interview. But you have to be true to yourself. Like the point of going, not that I want to compare The View to Nick Fuentes, obviously, God forbid, but like the point of going into those hostile places or interviewing people who are hostile to America and American values is to expose it, is to have that conversation. Of course, yeah, when you're on network TV, have the audience in mind. Like don't go in there and blow it up. Be charming. Show them that people on our side, exactly, like are human. You have to do, that's a very big part of it. But don't sit there and just agree with everything and act like all of the bad blood didn't happen. That's my view.
All right. So just before I move on, Alex and Chris, you get invited to The View. Do you go on?
Chris?
Yeah. Do I go on? I mean, I'd go. Yeah, I'll tell you why I'd go, because frankly, I don't think there's a single one of them that's done any homework or research or read anything that's not on a note card a producer produced for them. Now, I think Batya, for instance, is on panels with some pretty serious people. I don't naturally like conflict. Like I don't gravitate toward it. I don't like fights. I don't like bringing people on my show to fight with them. That irritates some in the audience. They want to see scrapping. Yeah. That's just not my speed or forte, but if I'm invited, I think I'd go. I tell you what I stopped doing is submitting to interviews in places like the Washington Post. The last time the Post tried to interview me about a Pennsylvania election, I said, do you mind if I roll on this conversation? Nope. They didn't like it. They bailed on it. They would not allow me to record our conversation. And that tells me everything I need to know about who I was dealing with there. So
Alex,
caveat emptor.
To Batya's point, I think it's great to go on various networks and, all about free speech, getting viewers, all sorts of, dynamic viewpoints. However, and I'll get personal. I have been asked a number of times to go on a specific network, and I always say no. Usually it has to do with the topic. So I might be a little bit more narrow about if I was asked to go on The View, would the information be that I'd be sharing? I always try to say yes to interviews where I think I bring something to the table, whether it's a legal background, because that's where I come from, journalistic, something like that. To not name the network, they always kind of wanted me to come on and talk about my former boss, Steve Bannon. And I knew exactly where they were wanting to go. And I'm on record always saying I enjoyed working for Steve Bannon. He's been a great mentor to me, a great boss at the time. So I have nothing negative to say. And I don't necessarily think that's where that network was going. So it just wasn't a good fit.
By the way, can I just say this before I will get back to January 30th. But to Alex's point, I had a phrase when I used to do media training that Alex just hit on. I used to tell people, don't put the secretary in press secretary, right? Why are you doing this interview? And I love Alex's approach, which is, does it make sense for me? Do I have something to offer? Or am I just going because I get to say I went on X network or whatever? And that's the thing, is too many people just say yes. And I'm with Alex. People will call and I'll be like, yeah, I don't think I'm the right person for this interview. I don't think I'm the right person for that show, because it's not going to turn out well. And I don't want either for me. And so I think that's the thing that everyone's got to remember, is that like not every answer is yes.
And if I could squirrel here for just a second, because I think it's important. We are hearing from some on our side. Batya brought up Tucker. There's an assertion that if we as conservatives or in the conservative media sphere disagree with one another, we're calling for censorship or silencing. I don't know of a single one of us who are conservatives that are calling for anybody, even including that loathsome little toad Fuentes, for anybody to be silenced. I certainly never have. I welcome anybody. Now, if somebody calls me up and said, I'd like to come on your show, Stigall, absolutely. Anybody is welcome. I don't go seeking out conflict either. So, but I guess I reject a little bit this tone and tenor in kind of the new digital conservative space that they say this exceptional stuff. We push back and they say, we're being silenced and attacked. Let's grow up a little bit. Okay?
Beyond that, Chris, I also find it funny, like Mandami goes on shows all the time on the left and they go, no one says you didn't ask him about his crazy I mean, like that guy says nutty stuff on whole stuff, Israel, his socialist views, his terrorist buddies, and they don't get crap for not pushing back. And yet, I mean, again, there's such a double standard. All right, I'm officially getting back to what Alex said. Here's what I worry about right now. The majority. If it's one thing to worry about the midterms, my gosh, I think we may have a problem. Marjorie leaves. They got to fill that seat. There's got to be a special election. To Alex's point, you got Massey, who doesn't vote with us a ton. And you also have this Tennessee 7th election next week. A week from today, we might lose a Republican seat. By the way, I totally get pissed for these members like Mark Greene. They just decide to leave in the middle of a term. That's a side note. But I worry about the Republican majority and Mike Johnson's job for the remaining, what will be 11 months when Marjorie leaves in January. Like, I think we have a Republican problem, and they better get, if I were Johnson, January 5th or whatever, when they come back for the year, let them go away for the holidays. Come back, get everyone in a room, and all right, guys, guess what? We're playing team ball for the rest of the year. No more crap. I mean, I got to imagine that's got to be where they're headed, right, Batya?
I'll just say very briefly, that image of Trump and Mamdani in the White House, there is a lesson there for Republicans in terms of thinking about primaries. Like, candidate selection is really important, and Trump can love a lot of types of people. You don't have to go for the craziest person. Like, there's a lot of kind of normies who, like, I feel like there's this artificial divide to where people seem to think that the most MAGA person is like the craziest person who's willing to tweet the craziest things. The MAGA agenda is a common sense centrist agenda. And it just like, you can find a person who's like, supports gay marriage, wants mass deportations, and is anti-trans. Like, that would be a great person. But I feel like the way it's set up is like, that would not read as like there's a way in which the GOP has bought the left's critique of MAGA. Okay. And you see this in the candidate selection. Trump can love a lot of different kinds of people. He has his agenda that he wants. He was so nice to Mamdani. Like, remember that image and just think like, who are we leaving on the table who could peel off swing voters, who could, play to the center, win general elections? I really think that this is an important message for people to internalize.
We keep talking about questions and the media and how they're treated, and Alex was saying this. I got to play for you this thing. Jen Psaki was on with Katie Couric. And I get very few times I get blown away by some of the stupid things they say on the left, but you've got to hear what Jen Psaki said to Katie Couric about how the press deals with us. Take a look.
That I think doesn't, I think you've probably talked about this because you know well, but I don't think gets enough attention, is the way they're reshaping the people in the press briefing room. More and more of the questions in there are by sycophants, are by people who are not asking about news that the American people cares about, but they're asking about, literally a question has started more than once. Why is Trump in such good shape, right? Or they are, putting out conspiracy theories. They're people who, and they're getting a lot of the questions. There are some of the people who are in the press pools. This means that reporters who are there to cover MBS being at the White House, or to cover Zelensky being at the White House, or to ask these questions that Mary Bruce fortunately asked yesterday, there are fewer of them. And that is, you don't know that and see that unless you've lived there. But that's a huge, huge problem because it's becoming more of a Kremlin-esque press corps.
Right. And they've invited a lot of reporters from very right-wing media outlets. Yeah. And you're right. They usually say, I forget, there was one example, like, did you ever believe that you would be the peacemaker?
Now, Alex Swoyer, I get it. I mean, they're not sitting there saying, we won't talk about Joe Biden. We won't talk about his cognitive or physical health. I found that conversation so unbelievably rich. These guys stripped 440 independent journalists of their media credentials. They refused to engage in any conversations about the president's mental acuity. They told us we were lying about the Hunter Biden laptop. They told us that they had no idea how cocaine got in there, despite the and suddenly Jen wants to talk about sycophants.
Yeah, I took some notes. I had to underline them because this was just, I loved this one. Okay, one of my favorite parts was when I had a hard time getting past Psaki using the example of why is Trump in such good shape? Because for 4 years, we were told Biden was healthy and there was nothing cognitively wrong with him despite all the gaffes. And yet, obviously, that July debate spoke for itself. Actions, I guess, speak louder than words. And so that I thought was just, to your point, very rich. I loved that. The next part was, of course, the wonderful journalist Couric coming back with her labeling very right-wing outlets. And I'm like thinking to myself, what about very left-wing outlets? I can name, the mainstream, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS. And then, of course, we get to Kremlin-esque. I think the Kremlin-esque part is when your government is funding your media, like PBS. NPR. Who's trying to get rid of that? I think it's the Trump administration. So, there's just a whole host there that was just kind of, I hope I didn't lose an IQ point watching that.
Katie Couric, by the way, asked John Fetterman just last week a question that basically suggested that while Charlie Kirk's assassination was an ugly thing, Senator Fetterman, he did say a lot of very divisive things, basically implying that he had it coming. I mean, this woman, she's odious, and she says it with such a perky smile.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.